Now, welcome to another lightning response video, where this time I got a few questions that are all sort of related to each other, and we will kick it off with this one from Anthony Scott, who asked, Hey Thor, I don't know how many people I speak for here, but it wouldn't matter to me at all if this Ben Solo script was good or even great. It could be scientifically proven to be the best movie idea of all time, and I still wouldn't be able to get excited for it, or probably even enjoy it past a superficial spectacle point. Anything that comes after or directly leads up to the Disney trilogy just leaves me feeling gutted. I can't enjoy any Star Wars media that has to exist in the same timeline as Jake Skywalker, or Palpatine returning, or the Final Order, etc. I don't really feel like it's even a choice at this point. I'm not angry, just hollow where there used to be love, passion, and anticipation for new Star Wars. And honestly, this is a message or comment that I really think Disney and Lucasfilm needs to hear and understand, because I do think you speak for a lot of people, a lot of fans or former fans at this point. I do think many out there just have absolutely no interest in anything related to the sequel trilogy, and they will not watch it. They will not care about it, no matter how good it may be. Like you said, it could scientifically be proven to be the best idea for a movie ever, or you could be somehow guaranteed that the Ben Solo movie or the Rey movie, whatever post sequel trilogy movie it might be, is the greatest thing that has ever been made, and people still don't care about it. They just do not want any more related to the sequel trilogy because the sequels were that disappointing to them. And I really do think that Disney and Lucasfilm have it stuck in their head that, yes, the prequel trilogy once upon a time seemed to be maligned by most. It seemed to be a disappointment to many fans back in the day. And certainly there are plenty of fans who don't like the prequels. I'm not saying there aren't. But as I've argued many times before in other videos, I think that hate was overblown by the media. I think there were a lot of fans of those movies. I think there is a younger generation, or younger at the time, getting a little older now, but there was certainly a generation that fell in love with the prequels and has long since come of age and grown up and have money and a voice and have made that voice and money be heard. And thus it feels like the prequels have had this resurgence and they are loved by everybody now, when the people who still hate them are there. They just don't really care anymore. They have long since had apathy set in, which sounds familiar, doesn't it? Apathy has set in, and they've moved on from the fan base. The younger generation has sprung up and taken their place, and it seems like the prequels have always been loved and always been this great thing. And I really think that Lucasfilm and Disney believes something like that is going to happen with the sequel trilogy. I know I've talked about this before. I'm rambling about it again, but I don't think they have the same level of passion from a younger generation that the prequels did. And I do think when it comes to the hate for prequels versus sequels, I do think there is more from the fan base for the sequels than there was the prequels, though it's hard to ever prove just how much there was for either one of them. Either way, I really think embracing the sequel trilogy is a mistake. And yes, I know people out there, there are some who love the sequels. They're happy that they're embracing them, and that's fine. Who cares about the health of the franchise, who wants to see it prosper and grow and more fans be brought in and to endure for generations to come. I think this is a pretty big mistake on their part to not realize just how many fans have no interest in this whatsoever. They will not watch it. They do not care about the sequel trilogy stuff. And unfortunately, I think there's a really good chance that Disney may get some false positives when it comes to the sequel trilogy. And what I mean by that is, and again, I've talked about this before, I know, but when the Mando and Grogu movie comes out next year, it'll be 6.5 years since a Star Wars movie came out. And I think that movie's going to do well simply because of that. Simply because there are a lot of casuals, a lot of normies, whatever we want to call them, who are going to go see that movie no matter what, because it is Star Wars, because it has that logo, because they've probably heard of Baby Yoda. It's going to do pretty well. I honestly believe that. Now, is it a good movie? Is it a bad movie? We'll have to see. But I do think people are going to see it, and then it'll be followed up a year later by Starfighter, and let's say the Mando and Grogu movie is pretty decent. That movie is probably gonna do pretty well too. It has Ryan Gosling in it. He himself is gonna attract some people. It'll be the second Star Wars movie back, and people are gonna go see it, and it's gonna be a post-sequel trilogy movie. So they may get the impression, if that movie does really well, that, oh, yeah, people love the sequel trilogy, or people have come around. The fans who were angry about it have come around, and everybody likes this era, and we're just gonna go all in on it. And then when the casuals and normies maybe get tired of going to a Star Wars movie every year, you have to again fall back on your more hardcore fans, or you have to hope that these new movies have indeed made new fans, which is certainly possible. I don't know. We'll have to see how it all goes, but I just feel like there's a large number of fans out there who have no interest in this whatsoever. And when the excitement of Star Wars returning again to the theater fades away, we're going to find out just how popular or not popular or accepted or not accepted the sequels ultimately have been, because this will be what, 3 or 4 more years down the road when we will theoretically get a Rey movie. And at that point, we'll be 15 years past The Force Awakens. We will have that generation from the sequel era growing up, and we'll see just how much the sequels were loved by that generation. We'll see how much the older fans actually care about the sequel trilogy. We will get our answers soon enough. And for better or worse, I don't think Disney and Lucasfilm are going to like those answers, though I'm happy to be proven wrong, to be honest with you. I'm happy to have Disney and Lucasfilm figured out and for them to get the post sequel trilogy time period right and for fans to come back regardless of them saying they never will. I want it to be a success. I am just extremely, extremely skeptical. And I do believe, again, many of the fans who say they won't come back will not come back pretty much no matter what. Though with that said, it brings us to this question from Jedi Master Draco, who asked, Hey Thor, do you think that a change in ownership for Star Wars would see fans at least give the new owners a chance? Would overwriting the Disney stuff akin to how Disney overwrote the EU help or harm their chances? I mean, if Disney sold, and mind you, I don't think they ever will. I think they will hold on to Star Wars no matter what, unless they are in some serious financial trouble and have to get some quick cash, essentially, to put it mildly or bluntly. I think they'd rather hold on to Star Wars and let it rot than see someone else get their hands on it and potentially do it right and get it right and make a ton of money off of it, which is what I think could potentially happen. I think if news came out that Disney was selling Lucasfilm, that people, the ones who were disappointed in the sequels, would immediately get hope again. I think a vast majority of disappointed fans would at least give whoever the new owner is a chance, especially if they were like, hey, we're firing Kathleen Kennedy, we're putting such and such person in. I don't know who they would put in. And they either said we're retconning the sequels or we're moving to a new point in time that has nothing to do with the sequels. We're just kind of ignoring those. I think they would get everybody excited again. Everybody, more or less, would give them a chance. But again, I don't see that ever happening. I think Disney would rather see Star Wars go down in flames and see someone else get their hands on it and get it right and be a major competitor to them. All right, and moving on, we have this question now from Siberian Dream, who asked, Hey Thor, do you think Disney Star Wars will ever do anything to recapture the cultural zeitgeist? From my perspective, I just don't think they will. What they make is so inextricably linked to the hip of what George Lucas created that they're having a hard time building their own identity outside of that legacy. The 9 episode saga is done, the EU was terminated, all the reasons we had for being invested are gone. When I was a kid, I knew people who didn't even like to read who'd grudgingly pick up a book and read it end to end if it was a Star Wars novel. It just seems like there's none of that loyalty left when Star Wars used to inspire, whether love or hate. After all, as you've pointed out on your own channel many times before, you have to love something to be disappointed in it. What steps can Disney Star Wars take to resolve this if that is their goal, to recapture the cultural zeitgeist and have an MCU type franchise? What is going to have to be done? And do you think if those steps aren't resolved, that it's just going to get worse with time? I would love to hear your thoughts. Take care of that wife of yours, and may the force be with you. And kind of going along with what I was just saying about if Disney sold, how a lot of fans, maybe most fans, if not almost all, would potentially give them another chance or give Star Wars another chance under new leadership. I do think there is this small window of a chance when Kennedy eventually does leave, and supposedly she's supposed to be gone relatively soon. That's not just speculation, that's from her own mouth this time. She talked about months ago that she's never going to retire from filmmaking, but yes, she is stepping away from Lucasfilm and they're trying to find a replacement and all of that. But when that does happen, when the day comes, when Kennedy is gone, there are going to be people that are very curious as to what the next move is. Now, a lot of the more pessimistic side, and I understand your pessimism, they're going to say it doesn't matter who they put in next. Disney has control. Disney doesn't care. They don't get it. The next person up is just another Kennedy, essentially, and Disney can never get it right. And I don't blame you for feeling that way. Even though I would argue there are some good things here in the Disney era. There are things like Andor, Skeleton Crew, Rogue One. A lot of the animated stuff has been decent in my opinion. So I don't think it's always the fault of Disney that everything goes wrong. I do think, and I talked about this in my previous video, I think the big problem at Disney was Bob Iger kind of set the tone with how he wanted the sequel trilogy to be made, and that just got everything off on the wrong foot, to put it mildly. I actually tend to blame Iger more than anyone else for the state of Star Wars, just because, again, he set the tone with the sequel trilogy. It seemed like it was a lot of his idea. He was the one who wanted to scrap Lucas's ideas, who kind of lied to Lucas to get his hands on Star Wars in the first place. Again, I talked about that in my previous video if you want to listen more about that. But I do think if you could get the right person in here, and I don't know who that is, I don't know that it's Dave Filoni, even though once upon a time I had a lot more faith in him than I do right now after the Ahsoka series. The first season anyway wasn't as good as it maybe needed to be. I don't know who you bring in as president of Lucasfilm to replace Kennedy, but I do know that, again, there will be a chance given by many people, no matter who it is, probably, and that if that person can somehow get it right, if they come out and initially say, hey, we understand maybe things haven't always been great with Star Wars for the last 10 years, but we're going to take a new approach. We're going to do things differently. We're going to maybe steer away from the George Lucas era stuff. Because I do agree with what you're saying here in your comment that Disney Star Wars doesn't really have its own identity. They just kind of based it all off George Lucas, which I understand. And I'm not saying I dislike that. But I do think at some point they have to make Star Wars their own and try to capture the magic of the old stuff and honor what came before and honor the Lucas stuff. That's not easy. I'm not saying it's a simple task, but they do need to do something with Star Wars that really makes it Disney but keeps it the same. And if the right person came in here and said, again, let's go 1,000 years in the future, let's just forget all of this Rey Skywalker stuff. You can pretend she never existed and the EU is canon. You can pretend whatever you want. And we're just going to go forward and tell new stories, and it's going to be more cohesive this time. I think they should try to keep things more linear. I think one of their problems is just jumping all over the time period with stories and confusing people and overwriting things. Anyway, bring in a new president, have an actual goal and vision, tell the fans what that goal and vision is, maybe get them to buy into it, or at least give them a chance, and then deliver. And I think Star Wars could re enter the cultural zeitgeist. I think it could be big again. Now, do I think that's actually going to happen? Well, I don't want to be the pessimist, but probably not. But who knows? It's possible, right? It's possible. But I wouldn't hold my breath. Something tells me that Kennedy will be gone soon enough, and whoever they bring in is just going to keep the status quo. We're going to keep going with the sequel trilogy stuff. And then, well, like I was saying before, I don't have a lot of confidence that that's going to resonate with a large percentage of the fan base. And I don't know that a lot of the casuals out there really like the sequels enough to see them embraced like that, but we'll have to see. All right, well, I think that is going to be all I got for you this time. That's enough rambling for one video. So take to the comments below and you tell me what you think about any and all of this, or answer these questions yourself. What do you think Star Wars can do? What do you think about the sequel trilogies being embraced? Is this a mistake or what? Or by all means, you can ask a question for a future lightning response video. I've gotten a ton of questions lately, so apologies that I don't get to as many as I would like, but do ask one yourself. All you got to do, you start your comment off with, hey Thor, you ask your question. I try to answer it in a future video, but whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.